Evet. So last time we were talking about this painting. This is a painting, not a picture, not a photograph. And then later work of Galileo. Galileo wrote several books, and the later books he published is the collection of his work on physics over the 30 years of study. Also, he lived relatively long for his time. Then, as we said last time, universities spread the information around the Europe, and one reason to have such high number of universities is that there were small kingdoms and small local rulers, smaller than the big king. So those local rulers compete with each other. They want to show off their abilities. And if one of them had an university in their kingdom, the other one also wanted to have similar thing. So it is something like for the reputation among the rulers. So in those years, we see different universities and university-like organizations, scholars, organized and supported by local rulers initially for the show purposes. Then it had the effect. The people like Rabelais, Pierre Ronsard, and Erasmus were influenced by Italian Renaissance as well. There was a Northern Renaissance, there was an English Renaissance. Southern Renaissance is in Italy, Northern Renaissance is in Poland and Germany, and also there is an English Renaissance. In English Renaissance, Marlowe, Shakespeare, those people were critical thinkers. And it then moved to Poland. There were Polish thinkers, etc. Probably those Polish influence moved up and east, then western part of the Russia, also affected by these thinkers, scholars, and people, scientists, etc., philosophers. First, Martin Luther and Calvin questioned the religious doctrine. They were priests. And Luther translated the Bible into German, which was very interesting. Interesting fact, because it was prohibited to. It was prohibited to read it in German or other languages. You have to learn Latin. Then it became a special thing for the church. So only they can understand it, and what they tell is the rule, not the book itself. Then he translated it, and then religious change started. Along with the religious change, there was a social change as well. Just after Martin Luther started his rebellion, I will say religious rebellion against the church and against the Catholic Church. In that time, there was no Protestantism. He started it, the German villagers started to rebel against their rulers, demanding that they don't have to pay that much taxes. Less tax, ability to select the priest that they belong to, ability to collect wood from the forest. So those tiny things. There were something like 12 articles they demand. Biraz şeye benzedi ama. So, in 1525, the 12 articles, asansör düştü. Asansörü tamir ediyorlardı. These 12 articles, burada size kötü bir resim paylaşayım. German peasants, Thomas Müntzer, German peasants rebelled against their rulers. In Europe, there was a serfdom. In Anatolia, there was a tımar. So, actually, it was a feudal system. The villagers has to work for their governors, not owners. So it is not a slavery-like, but it is semi-slavery, right? So they cannot, for example, they cannot change their village. They have to stay there. They have to work. They are paid by. It is still happening in Eastern Anatolia. So it is a feudal system. Inspired by some thought of the inspired by the Thomas Müntzer and Martin Luther, not the king, Martin Luther, they rebelled, but the problem was they didn't have any arms. Their arms were forks and shovels, all the farming equipment. Okay, so they rebelled against their rulers, and their demand was very interesting. Oops. I mean, I am very moved by that. It is called German Peasant War, and it is the first. And this German Peasant War, 12 articles, let's go to 12 articles. Those articles are okay, these are the summary of these are the things that they demand. Every town and village will be entitled to elect and dismiss its preacher if he misbehaves. So, imam, all right? They have to be able to choose their own priest. That's what they demand. The preacher shall preach the gospel simply, straight, and clear, without any human additions, for it is written that we can only attain God through faith. Whatever. 2. Preachers shall be paid from the great tithe. Any surplus should be used to help village poor, not to the church, and pay the war tax. Small tithe should be abolished, and for it was invented by humans. Kiliseye yardım. Aşırı miktarda. Until now, it has been practiced that we have been treated like serfs, which is deplorable, since Christ redeemed us his precious blood, both the shepherd and the nobleman, with no exceptions. We declare that we are free and we remain free. It is unbrotherly, not in accordance with the word of God, that the poor man is not entitled to hunt game, fowl, or fish. That was also forbidden by their rulers. So they want to be able to fish and hunt freely. The nobles, noble dedikleri soylular. Nobles have taken sole possession of the forest. When the poor man needs something, he must buy it for twice its price. Ormandan köylülere odunu satıyorlar. Aslında bugün de benzer şeyler oluyor. Consequently, all the forests that are not bought, which many rulers have simply appropriated, shall be returned to the village. Ormanlarımızı geri istiyoruz diyor, işte meralarımızı bilmem ne. The excessive compulsory labor, zorunlu iş, demanded of us, compulsory, niye compulsory? Öbürü soylu diye. Yani öyle bir dünya var ki orada. Groves from day to day should be reduced to the amount that our parents used to perform. Yani en azından artmasın diyorlar. Zorunlu labor. Nobility shall not force us perform more compulsory labor than it was agreed upon. Daha da fazla çalıştırılmayacak. Many fields cannot produce enough to pay the rent demanded for them. Bunlar, köylü de kiracı. Soylunun tarlasında. Honest men shall inspect these lands and set fair amount of rent for them, so that farmers need not work for free. Hani kaldırdığı ürün vergisini ödeyemiyor, sürekli çalışmak zorunda kalıyor boğaz tokluğuna. New laws are constantly being made to impose them fines. Sürekli ceza geliyor devletten, noble'dan. Punishments are not being meted out depending on offense, but instead in arbitrary fashion. Arbitrary ceza veriliyor insanlara. Seni şöyle yaptım, böyle yaptım, bilmem. Many have appropriated meadows and fields belonging to towns. We want them returned. Meraların geri alınması. Thoughtful, death duty, inheritance tax shall be abolished altogether, and never again shall widows and orphans be shamefully robbed. On the contrary to God and honor. Birisi öldüğü zaman eşine ve çocuklarına para bırakmayıp şeyler alıyormuş onu köylüden. Öyle bir kanun icat etmişler, alıyorlar. It is our decision that these articles bilmem ne. Dikkat ederseniz, if you pay attention, it is rotating around God and gospel. Because that is how those years' understanding of the world. So all the rules, societal rules, are based on Bible and Bible's workings, but they demanded it, and unfortunately, neydi? Kaç kişi öldü? It is later connected to French Revolution and all those similar rebels and developments. However, there is a big time gap. French Revolution is after 300 years. So after 300 years, peasants rarely rebelled. And Battle of Okay, this is called as German Peasant War. It is failed. They didn't succeed because they didn't have arms. Chevaliers slaughtered them. 100,000 villagers were killed. However, it remained as the first rebellion of villagers against their rulers and demanding working rights and civil rights, etc. Because before that there wasn't any. So this kind of civil rights movement started in Germany, and later it was inspired, I think, Marx. So let's see. These are the articles. Luther. And Luther said, after killings started, Luther said, "Don't go that far. Please apologize. I didn't say that much." So Martin Luther tried to calm down the events, but it didn't. Today, there was a monument in Germany. Okay, this is one of the monuments in Germany commemorating the German Peasant War. So that's it. This is the Thomas Müller. He is also a priest, but he was on the side of the villagers. Why am I saying this? Because there was a political effect of the religious change started by Martin Luther and John Calvin. That triggered multiple events. Let's try to remember. Is it Marx? No. So some communists later in the early 20th century and late 19th century refers to German Peasants' War. So they root themselves to the German Peasant War later, although they are not related. At the same time, Ottoman Empire was also in similar situation. There were Tamar people, and economy was going a little bit bad, and then Celali isyanları was started. So Celali isyanları was almost the same as German Peasant War. The motivation and the reasons were the same. There were some religious side, but also economic side. And also Celali isyanları was also didn't succeed at all. Then around late 1500 and early 1600, books started to be written by many people, like you know, as you know, Copernicus and until Newton. I forgot to tell. There was also another peasant war in England. A little bit later.
Cromwell.
Ne dedin?
Cromwell'dı galiba.
Galiba. Onun hatta filmi var. This is English. Yeah, this was English one. Bu daha önce, bu değil. Bu daha önce. Daha sonra da var. Bunlarda da var. Bir de şeyde var. Roma'da var. Roma'daki de Spartaküs'ün şeyi, Spartaküs'ün isyanı, o da köle isyanı. Bunların hepsi arkasından later they changed economy a little bit. The wages are increased because they are either killed. When they are killed, there is nobody to work, or they agree to some degree, so they increase. So worker rights changed after that. These are the these are the later people, general famous people that we know. Okay, then here is the important part: the Age of Enlightenment. This Age of Enlightenment was started around 1600s. After 1500s changes and starts, 17th century, 1600s, is called as Age of Enlightenment. Before, it's basically before French Revolution. So, journals, societies, universities studied and spread the information. These are the people I have shown last week, and thinkers like Immanuel Kant, David Hume, Adam Smith, Voltaire. These are very interesting. Voltaire, for example, very interesting. People read this, and this was, I have shown this last week. This was the situation in Europe. Among the rich people, they get together and read. And again, the society was layered. So at the top there were clergy, then there are nobles. These are the noble guys, and there are villagers. Villagers are a large population. They are mostly uneducated, and with the start of this change, some trade people, some people with more money can become closer to these nobles. So you can be a noble person by moving in the social barriers, moving through the social barriers, through the money, through trade. But it was hard and limited. That enlightenment, age of illumination, age of enlightenment, like places that people talk, because if people talk, they develop ideas, and those ideas are generally against the Catholic Church, were generally against Catholic Church, and it started more revolutions. However, it wasn't as fast. It was very slow. Many things are not solved until late 19th century in terms of thinking. Generally, reasoning was and evidence was at the center. People were interested in reasoning. So if there is a rule, there must be a reason for it. And in order to understand who we are, where we are, telefonları bıraksak. In order to understand who we are, where we are, we have to use the facts, okay? Not predetermined knowledge. Then ideas like liberty, progress, toleration, fraternity, government separation of church and state, laiklik, etc. Started in those years, in 1700s. Fransızların şeyi neydi? Üç tane kelimesi vardı. Liberty, egalite, fraternite değil mi? Armalarındaki şey, anayasa. Kardeşlik. So those, because it was very bad. Let me show you. This was the France before French Revolution. This is the villagers, nobles and peasants, nobles and clergy. And the numbers was 24 million peasants. This is important. 24 million peasants, no land ownership. They are all renting. 400,000 nobles, 100,000 clergy. So liberty, egalite, fraternite destroys this. Okay, so that's why it is important. Then, since at the top there were clergy, religious people, all the things happening on the bottom layers conflicted with the church. So these doctrines of the Enlightenment, individual liberty and religious tolerance, were always in opposition to an absolute monarchy and fixed dogmas of the church. It's always against. And that's understandable. It was marked by emphasis on scientific method and reductionism, along with increased questioning of religious orthodoxy, such as said by Immanuel Kant, answering the question, what is enlightenment? There is a text. I'm gonna add it to the Teams group. So Immanuel Kant has an essay on what is enlightenment. He says, by the lack of enlightenment, telefonu bırakabilir miyiz? Lack of enlightenment, ya intihar etmesine gerek yok. So, lack of enlightenment as people's... Okay. Türkçe dersi var ama şey için. Yabancılar için. Turkish 107, right? I think. Okay.
We don't have this lesson.
Huh? Are you taking 107?
I'm an international student, so I take Turkish 1.104.
Oh, this is 104, not 107. Okay.
Yes, which is for
Okay,
international.
very good. So, my son is also doing the same, so don't worry about it. Until that time, philosophers said people were not thinking. Kant says they are thinking, they can think, but the problem is the lack of courage, cesaret. They can think, they are intelligent, they are not poor, they are not primitive people, but they can not do it because they are fearing from their future. So the courage is the issue. Kant says it addressed the causes of lack of enlightenment and the preconditions necessary to make it possible for people to enlighten themselves. He held it necessary that all church and state paternalism should be abolished and people should be given the freedom to use their own mind, own intellect. So Kant says this, and it is quite critical. Let people think. Among the first scientific experimenters, some of them are in France, some of them are in Italy. Luigi Galvani was in Italy, just like Galileo, etc. In 1780, it is later times, they discovered that muscles of the dead frogs twitched when struck by electrical spark. Okay, there were no batteries. They were generating electricity with other means, like by friction. Anyway, so in order to measure the amount of electricity, they used frog leg. So if frog leg moves too much, they said it's more voltage. There is more voltage. Less voltage, more voltage. They didn't say voltage because volt wasn't invented. They said more electricity, less electricity. But the name is Galvani. So they made a galvanoscope with a frog leg, with a tube, dead frog leg. So the muscle. So for each measurement, you kill an animal. Okay, but that was the method. He was recognized as pioneer of bioelectromagnetic for this, and also the name of the galvanometer. How many of you know galvanometer as a name? Okay, galvanometer is the device that detects the electricity. So that device is today named as galvanometer because of this guy, Luigi Galvani. And Ørsted is the circuit person. Ørsted gave the galvanometer name to the device after him, so after his death, of course. They said, let's name this device as galvanometer because Luigi Galvani was the first guy who measured the electricity. Volt yok demiştim ya. Then 1801, Volta invented the battery. And in Turkish, we say pil, right? In French, I think it's again pil. What do you say in the battery in your language? Pil or battery? Battery. Which language is it?
Arabic.
Arabic. Battery is English. So
Yes, but we say it in the same way.
what is the other? Is there a?
Battery.
All right. So it is still Western. So pile was from French, I think. It is named also as column because it was long. So it's pile. He demonstrated invention to Napoleon, the battery, believing that it might have an impact for the army and for the government and asking for the money, etc. So battery, and Volta, later he gave the name of the electrical measurement as volt. In 1799 he invented that. With the invention, Volta proved that electricity could be generated chemically and debunked the prevalent theory, the previous theory, that electricity was generated only by living beings. That assumption was invalidated. Volta's invention sparked a great amount of scientific experiment and led others to conduct similar experiments, where eventually led to the development of the electrochemistry. 1800. So only 200 years ago, 225 years ago. This is the important okay. Şuradan başlayayım şimdi. Okay, there is a Madame de Pompadour. Member of the French court. She was official chief mistress of King Louis and remained influential as court favorite until death. So, olmaz. Okay, this is good. There is a lady, 1721 to 1764. 14. Louis. Yok, 15. Louis. Gözde yani. Not wife, but something like that. Anyway, so in the etc., etc. But he was influential in art and politics. So let me go back. This is the first book, the series of books that contain information about everything. Before that, there was not an encyclopedia. The name of this kind of book is named then as encyclopédie in French, to combine everything into one book as a reference book. It is started by, it's a big project. It is started by Diderot, so Diderot's encyclopedia it says, and it started from 1751 to 1772. How many years? Like 21 years, right? Yeah, 21 years. 21 years is a big time. Therefore, it is the most famous and representing the thought, the device, the thing for the age of enlightenment. It's an encyclopedia. And it's not like small piece, it's multiple volumes. And that is the first time that the world has an encyclopedia rather than a book. It had everything. All the information is collected. So it is good for learning. It was good for learning things, as all encyclopedia is. But at that time, 1772, it was not possible to talk about everything. It wasn't free to talk about freedom, religious freedom or secularity or science or self-thinking, freedom, brotherhood. So those are the things that are against the noble and the king. Then what they did was they developed techniques to tell the same thing through different expressions in art, in literature, and also in social writings, in writings, in books. For example, this image is the inside cover image of the encyclopedia. Although we see a lot of angels and the things like it's like a religious classical image, it represents certain things. There is a freedom, there is a thought, and there is a bad thought. People are rebelling against something, so it has a message, but they want to hide it to escape from prosecution. Same kind of literature development happened in Ottoman time as well, in late 19th century. They developed way of saying things that has two meanings. The simple meaning has the regular meaning, but the superior meaning, the second meaning, is political. Okay? Because if they say it directly, they were imprisoned. The same thing was here. So the center represents truth, surrounded by bright light, depicting enlightenment, and the figure on the right are reason and philosophy, are tearing the wheel from the truth, which is very difficult to understand, but that is how it is. It is. This is important, so I am giving more information about it. It is 28 volumes. You can read it today. 28 volumes. 71,000 articles. It is a big issue. 3,000 images drawn by hand like this. 3,000 images. Some of them are illustrations, a machine, for example. The first 17 volumes were published between 1751 and 1765. 11 volumes of plates were finished by 1772. It was printed press. It sold 4,000 copies. It's a big number for that time. 4,000 copies in 20 years. And earned a big profit, 2 million French money. Because of its occasional radical contents, the encyclopedia caused much controversy in conservative circles. The initiative of Parliament of Paris, the French government suspended the encyclopedia. Yasaklamışlar. It was banned in 1759. Bunlar da çok oluyor. Bu ne ansiklopedisi? Başımıza iş açıyorlar şeklinde. Then the encyclopedia had also been banned in 1752 after the publication of the second volume. Despite these issues, the work continued in secret, partially because the project had highly placed supporters like Madame Pompadour. Siz o yapın diyor. So it was prohibited officially, but not actually. Even government didn't do much. So it was prohibited. When people ask, this encyclopedia is bad, we should ban it, they say, okay, it is banned, no problem. But they kept going. Again, I remember these things, 4,000 copies, 18 pages, 75,000 entries, 40,000 articles. So it's a big book set. Many of the articles could be wrong in today's standards and scientific knowledge, but it's a good thing if we can read it, and we can find it on the internet, so you can read it if you are interested. Around 1700, Newton lived. Before encyclopedia, just before encyclopedia. He was in England, English mathematician, physicist, astronomer, theologian. He was also religious. The Principia Mathematica, the book he wrote, has the information about Newton laws, motion, law of motion, kinematics, mechanics, classical mechanics, Kepler laws, planetary motion, everything you can think of is included. This book is also interesting, and we might visit that. So he was in Trinity College in Cambridge. Mechanics, gravitation, calculus, law of motion, optics, binomial series. So these are some of the work. He is famous, and it defined a corner as well in the science, because mechanics laws are not assumptions anymore. It was theoretical realities, the Newtonian mechanics. One of the things that he made is derivative of mv, the change in momentum, is the force that is required. So this is one of the important facts. Before him, these are not known. Okay, so let me continue a little bit. On Monday we have an exam, right? Okay. The Monday exam doesn't include this. It will include up to last week. I'm going to ask some questions and some fill in the blanks or multiple choice questions. Combined. It will be a combined exam. It won't be difficult if you attend the classes and listened, and if you watch the videos, then I think you should be able to do it with a very high success, so you don't have to worry about things. I'm not gonna ask who died when, okay? I'm not gonna ask difficult names to remember, because I don't remember. But if I ask Galileo, you should give an answer, okay? What else? Do you have any questions? So, okay, this is the original.
Today we will examine volumes from two 18th century editions of the Encyclopédie, held in USC's special collections. What is the Encyclopédie, ou Dictionnaire raisonné des sciences, des arts et des métiers? Well, it is a massive undertaking, directed by Denis Diderot and Jean-Laurent d'Alembert, and produced between 1751 and 1772 in the midst of the French Enlightenment. In its entirety, it consists of 28 total volumes and contains 74,000 articles written by more than 130 contributors. It is one of the most amazing achievements of the French Enlightenment, a stunning accomplishment that is both intellectual and technical. It is a compilation of knowledge, but it is also an incredibly beautiful, detailed, and intricate series of objects that took many years to produce. Here we are examining the famous Tree of Knowledge, or Système des Connaissances, which organizes and classifies the various branches of human knowledge. The Tree of Knowledge appears in the first volume of the Encyclopédie. The diagram here is based on the principle that human knowledge is the product of sensory experience, which is an empiricist claim and can be organized into three branches: memory, reason, and imagination. Note the way in which the tree structure gives knowledge both an order and a hierarchy, roots and branches. The tree structure might strike us as a familiar abstraction from the history of philosophy, but we also might recognize the way in which the tree becomes, in other parts of the Encyclopédie, a living being. We will return to the Tree of Knowledge in a few minutes. We can see that this edition of the Encyclopédie is a handsome, leather-bound volume. It was designed to reach a European-wide audience of literate people. Note the ébreu, or paper marbling, that appears on the inside of the cover. This was an ancient art developed first across the Islamic world. European travelers probably encountered it first in Istanbul, Turkey, where it continues to be practiced today. Here we see the gorgeous frontispiece of the Encyclopédie, which was engraved in 1772 by Bonaventure Louis Prévost, based on an original sketch by Charles Nicolas Couchant. This frontispiece, in addition to being an appealing image, is another way of organizing human knowledge in its relationship to practice and technique. In his art criticism, Diderot describes Couchant's drawing thus: "Beneath an iconic temple, the sanctuary of truth, one sees truth enveloped in a veil and radiating light which parts the clouds and disperses them. To the right, reason and philosophy are busy, one in raising the veil from truth, the other in tearing it away." These allegorical figures are represented as women, which was conventional at the time, but also might help us think about the difficult relationship of actual women to the practice of philosophy, from which they were often excluded. While the French Enlightenment saw the rise of important women philosophers, including the great mathematician Émilie du Châtelet, these women often worked in the shadow of men unwilling to credit them fully. Highlighting women as allegorical figures should not obscure their struggles to access and produce knowledge in actuality. The completed engraving was sent to all of the Encyclopédie's subscribers beginning in 1772. Here we see the dedication to the Comte d'Argenson, a French statesman and patron of literature, younger brother of René Louis d'Argenson. He guided the planning of the Champs-Élysées and the Place de la Concorde and was a friend and supporter of the philosophe. The Discours préliminaire, or preliminary discourse, written by d'Alembert, argues that our memory gives rise to the discipline of history, our imagination generates the category of poetry, and our reason undergirds the discipline of philosophy. Note that this classification gives a secular basis to the knowledge that the Encyclopédie will present. And here we are back at the Tree of Knowledge, which attempts to sum up in a single image the main goals of the Encyclopédie: to reconfigure the entirety of human knowledge as the basis for future progress in all fields of inquiry. Another challenge to conventional hierarchies that you can see in the Encyclopédie is the breakdown between the traditional relationship between liberal and mechanical arts. Diderot makes religion subservient to philosophy and highlights the importance of the artisan in the development and preservation of knowledge. The Encyclopédie classifies learning, but perhaps more importantly, it links up knowledge and practice, knowing things and making things, in a way that was meant to open the world to its readers, both intellectually and practically. Now we arrive at the plates. The plates of the Encyclopédie often represent stages in complex technical processes. They are astonishingly accurate, diverting, and engaging, and in studying them, we can learn a lot about the production of various aspects of 18th century material culture and how 18th century spaces and places must have felt and looked to the people living in them. Vignettes representing human figures engaged in various activities are supplemented by large-scale renderings depicting tools such as the printing press and how to use them. Numbers adjacent to different parts of the image link each element into articles in the text. The plates take us into many different aspects of 18th century artisanal practice. We can see not only the design of the printing press and the process of printing, but such activities as horse training and shipbuilding. The Encyclopédie gives a picture of 18th century life, but it also shows the way in which knowledge works. Knowledge is not neutral, but is part of a whole set of practices and operations. Technology informs the way in which we engage with the world.
Kalanını siz dinlersiniz. Geldiğiniz için teşekkür ederim.